Now, I'll be the first to admit that I am no Oxygen power user, but I wanted to take a look over the options for customizing WooCommerce and compare that to the likes of Elementor and Bricks, tools that I'm kind of more used to. So that's exactly what I'm going to do in this video, but just remember this is not intended to be a tutorial. So let's get started by seeing how to build the single product page template and the options that we're given. Okay, so we start off by simply coming over to Oxygen and choose the templates option. Now inside there are all our templates. You can see there's my main template, which includes my header, my footer, and the main content area. That's all that's been created, but we'll use that globally. So let's add a new template. Now what we're going to do is inherit the design from another template. This is where we're going to choose that main template, so we now have our header and footer inside there. You then have Singular, Archive, and Other. So if you open up Singular, you can see there's all the single post based templates we can build. And as you can see, we've got things like posts, pages, products, variations, those kinds of things. So for this example, we're going to choose the products option to create our single product template. If you want to set any other values, you can do that inside here, but we're going to leave those as they are. And before we hit that publish button, let's just go ahead and give our template a name. We'll call this single product template and simply hit publish. So now we have the option to edit this with Oxygen. So let's click that. And once that loads in, you can see this is where our header and footer have been pulled in from that main template. So now we need to go ahead and start to create the main content area. So the first thing to do is open up our structure panel so we can see exactly what's going on. There's our inner content area. So let's go to add, and let's add a new section inside here. So this is now the container for where we want to put all of our WooCommerce based options. Now, if you're new to working with Oxygen, or in honesty, a lot of these different kinds of theme and template and page builders and so on, you're going to find you're going to have a structure panel somewhere in the design panel, and this allows you to easily see exactly what's going on, reorder things, stack things, those kinds of things. You will be using that, and it's good to get used to using it because it can help you solve a lot of problems when things don't line up the way you may expect them to. Okay, so once we've done that, let's come back over to the add option and let's open up the new WooCommerce panel. So this is where we can find all the different widgets to do with all the different pages, the key elements, those kinds of things. So you can see we've got single product, which is what we're currently working on. We also have the archive and product list, WooCommerce pages, and other elements. We can still go ahead and use any of the basic widgets, any of the WordPress widgets. You can kind of pull whatever you want in when you're building your template setup. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have inside the WooCommerce section. You can see we have the first option, which is the product builder. We also have all these individual widgets for various different components like excerpt, descriptions, prices, those kinds of things. So let's open up the page, the product builder, first of all. Let's drop that into our design. And you can see what that does is it kind of pulls in a pre-built layout, including most of the key things that you would want, the page title or the product title, the price, the description, the buy now, those kinds of things. So you could use this if you wanted to, basically as it is. But if you expand out the structure option on the right hand side, you can see all we have inside there is the product builder. This doesn't give us access to those various different components. We can't expand the product builder and see all the various components. We can't select anything inside here. This is one entire widget. Now I could be wrong on this front, and if we hop over to the advanced section, you can see there's all the normal options for the background, size and spacing, layout and so on. But this doesn't give us control over the kind of child elements inside this. So you could use this if you just simply want to drop things in there and just use the default layout, or we can delete this. And we can, if we want to, then just come back to the add option and just add the various different pieces that we want in. So for example, we want to drop in the product images. We could drop those inside there. I will stop dragging and drop it at some point. And you see that inserts the product image widget. And then we have all the controls to control exactly how that looks, the colors, the layout, those kinds of things. So you can see we've got all those options inside there. This is where you kind of have to make that choice between, do you want the quick and easy way of doing things, you can just drop it in, or do you want the more sort of granular way where you can build things up yourself? For this really simple example, we're going to do just that. We're going to build things up ourselves and create a simple kind of template. So this is not a design-based tutorial. This is just me taking a look at how WooCommerce works inside the Oxygen builder. Okay, so let's just remove that from there. Let's create some form of layout. Let's come back into the add option, go back to our basics, and inside there we're going to drop in columns. So we're going to just drop in a column setup, and we're going to do this 50-50 so we can kind of split things over to the image on the left hand side and some of the details on the right hand side. So using our structure panel again on the right hand side, let's expand that column out, and you can see inside there we now have two divs. This is the left and the right hand divs, and that's where we can put our content. So now let's head back to the add option and come back into our WooCommerce. And now we can start to add in the various different bits that we want. So let's start off with our product images. We'll add that into the left-hand column, and there's our product image. And now, like I said, we can go ahead and we can customize the various different aspects of how this looks and operates and those kinds of things. Okay, so with that being done, let's come back to add, and we're going to make sure we've got the right column selected, or the right column selected. We'll come into add, and now we can do things like add in the product description. Click, add that inside there. Back and add, we can say we want to add the product price, and you can see it is no real difference to if you're working with something like Elementor or anything like that. This is all going to be very, very familiar. Product stock, for example, if stock is being managed, and again you then have all the controls for fonts, font sizes, colors, unless of course you're using the global styling, which is obviously what I would always recommend you do. Okay, so now if we expand these out on the right hand side, you can see we now have the various different widgets placed inside the divs. So we can see exactly what's going on. We can select any of these at any given time. Again, it's one of those things that when it comes to Oxygen, I'm not really fussed on the way this is all done. It would be nice to see some kind of scaling inside here, because you very quickly, when you start to stack things up and get slightly more complex layouts, you do find you're sort of scrolling sideways a lot just to see exactly what's going on. Not perfect, but not the end of the world. So let's do the final option to let people actually purchase on here. There we go, product card button. Drop that inside there, and you can see if we put things in the wrong place, we can just literally reorder these to where they need to go. Again, this can be a little bit finicky from time to time, but usually it's pretty good. Now, at the moment, we're looking at a product that might not have all the options that you want when you're building your template. So you can come up to the top left and go to the previewing, and you can see we're currently looking at the WordPress pendants, just some pre-built data, but we can change this to something else like the logo collection, for example, and let that refresh. And now you can see this shows us where we've got different variations. For example, you can see the variations being pulled in so we can see what they look like. So it gives us the ability to make sure that we can customize everything and look the way we want. So we can very quickly and easily come through and just pull up different products in this example to see what they look like inside our design. I really like the way that's done. It's just quick and easy, intuitive, and you don't have to dig through some different subsections to go and find this kind of thing. Okay, so we've created two of the main kind of things we want. Let's just make this a little bit more interesting. Let's go ahead and add a new section. So we'll come back to our inner content. We'll come to add into our basics, add a new section inside there, position that where we want, which is right at the top. And this is what I mean where it doesn't always kind of operate the way you want it to. You know, it can be really, really finicky and really frustrating just trying to get these to order. There we go. Eventually got there in the end. So our section at the top now, we're going to use this to put a kind of featured image or something at the top there. So what we'll do is we'll come out to our advanced options, go into our background, and inside there we can now browse or use dynamic data. So let's use the data option. We want the featured image in this example, and we can set the size. So we'll say we want this to be medium large with nice quality, and we'll just say insert. So that now puts the image into the background there for us, and we can, if we want to, just adjust margins and padding and those kinds of things. Or we can, if we want to, just undo that, and then you can set up your minimum height, those kinds of things. So let's just set this to be cover. We'll set it to be no repeat. You can set it to fixed or scrolled. You can do your background clipping and all those kinds of things. Those options are in there. You can apply gradients over this if you want to. Tons of options, most of which you should be more than accustomed to. So let's head back out of our styles and we'll go into our size and spacing. Inside here, we're going to set I'm going to say height. We're going to set this to be something like 30, not pixels. We want to set this to V height or viewport height. There we go. Actually, let's just set that to 40. Let's just try that. See how that looks. That looks okay. Okay, so let's just go back and tweak our background image. And we say we want to put this, we'll put 50%, 50%. There you go. That kind of centers everything on there. Now, I'm far from an Oxygen expert. If you want to see someone that knows what they're doing with this a lot better, I'd recommend taking a look at either Permaslug's YouTube channel or also taking a look at Stratos Tutorials. They have a lot of really good Oxygen-based tutorials, so check their channels out. So with that section there, we can treat this in exactly the same way as we treat any other section, single columns, rows, whatever. We can apply and add extra things inside here. So let's come back to add. I'm going to hop into our WooCommerce section, and we're going to grab our product title, making sure that we've got the title section, this hero image section at the top selected. Click, add the product title, and boom, there's our product title. Let's expand that out, and you can see there's everything we need. Okay, so now we can go ahead and we can position this as we want to. So again, selecting the section, we can say we want to put this to be in the center, for example, and you can also set your horizontal and vertical and so on. So set this how you want to make sure it all fits the way that you want it to. Add a shape divider, well, we can do that as well. I'm going to say we put a shape divider at the bottom, for example. So bottom, there we go.
And do we want to flip horizontal or vertical? No, we will leave it as is. Height, we'll set this to something like, I don't know, let's just try 50, see what that looks like. Yeah, there we go. That looks okay. And then we can just say we want to apply a color to that if we want to, so we'll make sure this ties in with the background color. So there we go. And you can see, really, really simple, really easy. You want to adjust the styling on there? Well, we can say, let's just set that to something like Montserrat. There we go. And color, we'll set that to be white, so it stands off the background. Font weight, we'll set that to something like 400, and yep, that looks okay. Come to advanced, we're going to a typography inside there. You can adjust any alignment options if you want to. You can set things to be uppercase, capitalized, all those kinds of good things. So set things up as you want to, but you can see we're very quickly building out a typical kind of template that's part of, WooCommerce. Okay, so for our final thing, let's add another section in. So again, come to add, into our basics, into section, making sure that's at the bottom, that's fine. Come to add again. Come into WooCommerce, and what we're going to do is we're going to just pull in the related products option. And that should then pull that in for us. Now, you might not see any related products because you might not have any products related. So you can very easily come in and just change this to some other previewing option. And there we go. So if we take that one, which is in the same category, everything is set up. And we have all the same kind of options. We can adjust the layout, the stars, the price, all those kinds of things. So if you want to change the color scheme, you can do all that inside there as well. Pretty cool, pretty simple. Let's just, for example, take a look at the main buttons. And if you want to, we can set the background color for our main buttons, and we'll choose this purple kind of color. You can see that picks that up. If you want a hover color, we'll choose this lighter purple, and you can see now, there you go, everything works. Really simple to do. So let's just say we're happy with that. We'll just click on save, and that's our single product template is now created.
Now we've covered the single product template and its options, it's time to take a look at the archive page templates.
So let's get started by clicking add new template. We're going to give this a name of default product archive. We're going to inherit the design from our template, which is our main template for our header and footer, and then we can choose the kind of template that we want to work with. So for this example, we're working with an archive, so we'll choose the archive option. Now this is one of those areas that Oxygen doesn't necessarily make it that user-friendly for newer users. You can see we can choose all archives, taxonomies, post types, authors, and date. But where do you go to actually get a product archive? Well, you've got to go to the post types. And then you've got to click inside the post types, and you can see we can then choose what we want. So this is kind of like if you were used to coming from something like Elementor where you set your conditions, you'd set this kind of condition for where it would be used after you've gone ahead and kind of created things. So this just feels a little bit more complex than it might need to and could alienate newer users. But what we need to do is choose product. So we're choosing the product archive. If you want to assign this to multiple different kinds of archives, you can do that inside here as well by just choosing additional options and the post types or taxonomies or whatever you kind of want. So with that being said, we've set up the basics. We can now hit publish, and that now has published that page, and we can open this up with Oxygen. So once we open it up with Oxygen, we now have our normal Oxygen editor. So let's open up our structure on the right hand side. Our inner content is which is where we can place everything. So we're going to come into add. We're going to choose the option to add a new section and insert that inside there. So now we've got the kind of container that'll contain the archive and all the different things we want to do. Okay, so let's delve in and take a look at what options we have. We'll choose the add option, and from there we're going to scroll down until we come to our WooCommerce options, and this is where we have all those options. So you can see, like we saw in the first part of this dealing with a single product template, there's all our options, and if we scroll through you can see we've got the archive based options and kind of global WooCommerce page options and things like that. Now again, it will be one of those things that will be kind of useful if there's filtered information based upon the type of template that you were working on, just to make things a little clearer, but it is where it is. So what can we do? We've got 4 basic options we can choose from. Let's go ahead and first of all put our archive title in. So let's choose to put that in, and you can see that drops the archive title inside there, and we can go ahead and we can style this however we want to. So we'll set this on like H2, nothing you haven't already seen. If we expand things out on the right hand side, there's our archive title. Let's add another option, and this time we're going to go and add the archive description. We'll add that underneath there. Now currently there's no description associated with this, and nothing's going to show up. If we start adding descriptions inside our WooCommerce store, they'll show up in this template. Okay, so now we've done that, we've got the 2 sort of main things we want, the product list and the categories list. As you would expect, they do exactly what they're named as. So for example, if we open up the categories list and insert that, that will now insert all our categories. Now currently with the shop that I've got, which is the demo data installed, there's no images associated with this, but if you had images, they would show up inside here. So now we can go ahead and configure this the way that we want to show how we want it to show. So for example, you can see under the primary section, we have the images typography and the categories query. All pretty self-explanatory. If you want to add borders or box shadows to your images, you can do that inside here. And I'm not going to bore you by showing how all these work. I think they're pretty self-explanatory. The same goes for typography. The categories query is where you're going to probably want to do more. Now this is going to allow you to configure this a little bit. So for example, we want to change the columns because we don't want these to be quite so big. Let's set that value to 6. But before we can actually get that to work, we need to apply the parameters. So before we do, let's just quickly set a few other variables that we want. So for example, we want to hide any empty categories, and we'll say we want this example to be descending. And how do we want to order this? Well, we'll set it to be something like the name. That doesn't really matter too much. So now we hit apply parameters. That will refresh and apply everything. So you can see now we're going from descending order. So we've got t-shirts first and accessories last, and we've got 6 columns. So again, really quite self-explanatory. And if you want to limit the number of results inside here so you don't end up with a huge amount of different categories being displayed, you can set a limit inside this. So let's just say we'll set this to something like 4, apply our parameters, and we've broken it down to 4. You want to put specific IDs in. If you want to create a really unique customized kind of layout, drop the IDs inside there. You kind of get where I'm coming from with this. Let's delete that, and let's go back and add the product list this time. And you can see this operates in a very similar fashion. Now, I'm not going to go into the advanced options because this is just to do with the styling and how we set things up inside there. So I'm going to kind of focus on this primary section just to sort of show you. Now, you can see that we've got the title inside here, so we could theoretically just get rid of this title from there and the archive description, and we'll just stick with what we have here. Again, we've got the product query this time as opposed to the category query, and you can see we've got the default, which is what's kind of being used, or you can, if you want to, come into custom. Now, the custom option shares a lot of similarities to what I've just shown you when we're working with the actual category list. You can do your limits, you can do your columns. So for example, we'll say we want to put 3 columns inside here and we want to limit this to 6, for example. Again, we've got to come down and hit that apply parameter. So it would be nice if we didn't have to do that. But you can see, there we go. We've now just tweaked our layout. Really easy to do. And if you want to, you can set up much more complex and comprehensive kind of queries filters inside here. Do you want to paginate things? Well, we'll say yes, we do. And you can see we can order things. We can do all those kinds of things. We can choose categories inside here, the category operator, whether we want to show on sale only. So for example, we say on sale only. Hit the option for apply parameters, and now we only see the sale items. So it's really quite straightforward in how you can use this, and you can kind of filter things out the way that you want. Again, it would be one of those things that I would like to see this. You make a change and it updates in real time as opposed to having to scroll through, because otherwise that just becomes a bit sort of like laborious to do. Pretty easy to deal with the actual parameters side of things. Let's go back. Take a look at our layout. Inside here now we've got some basic options, the number of columns we want to use, the inner padding that might be associated with it. So kind of more to do with the styling side of things. The same goes with the heading and the results and sorting, select and things like that. So where we've got the sorting options and these headings, you can kind of control how that looks. Same with the sale badges, images, links, those kinds of things. So let's open up the pagination, and you can see we can choose how we want to paginate things if that's something you have on there. So left, right, center, font size, styling, those kinds of things. Pretty useful, but nothing that's going to kind of blow you away. So next, let's take a look at how we can start to get a little bit more feature rich, add some extra things into this design layout. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to add in a new 2-column section, and we're going to move things around a little bit. So I'm going to quickly do that. Okay, so I've gone ahead and created a 2-column layout, pushed everything over to the right hand side, and now what we're going to do is we're going to come in to add some new items into this left hand section. So let's click add, and we're going to come into WordPress, and we're going to go into the option for widgets. And if we take a look inside there, we've got things like active product filters, filter product by attribute, price, search, product list, those kinds of things. So we have extra features inside here should we want to use them. So let's say we're going to add a product by price, for example. So we'll just simply select that, drop it in there. You can see that now pulls in the filter by price. Now, the thing that's important here is you've got to make sure you've got your filter set up correctly or your query set up correctly for your product list. Otherwise, things won't necessarily work the way you want. So let me just go back to our product list, select that, come into our product query, and what I'm going to do is make sure this is set to default. Hit apply parameters, and that will just update it. So now any custom query will be ignored in this example. Now, again, this is something that I'm not a real power user when it comes to working with Oxygen. I'm still pretty new to this. This is kind of my first look along with you guys. So let's just save that. And you can see that's now pulled in some basic information from 0 to £50 in this example. So it's pulling data from how much we've got to start off with and how much we're kind of finishing up with. So we've got a really low priced item at £2 and we've got a higher priced item of 45. If we select this and go into advanced, you can see we've got styling options, but we don't have any options to set those values inside there. You can also set the option to don't render this with Oxygen. So that will just basically place this with a placeholder in its place. And when you actually take a look at it on the front end, then it's going to be different. But we can just enable and disable that. I'm assuming this is to kind of speed up working with the admin side of things. But okay, that's cool. So we'll hit apply on there and we'll save this. And what we're going to do is take a look at this on the front end. Okay, so let's test this out. Let's try it in action. Let's just say we're going to drop that down to items between 0 and 20, hit filter, and there's our results. If we want to increase the lowest value and hit filter again, you can see that now filters things out. So works in the way you would expect it to work, all pretty simple and self-explanatory. I don't really like the fact you've got to hit filter to get this to work. I would prefer Ajax in this example. It's pretty basic, but it's kind of doing what it does. So what else do we have? Let's go into add, and you can see we can go ahead and do things like product search. We could drop that inside there, and we now have a product search. We could position that wherever we wanted to. So let's say that makes a bit more sense being above these. There we go. So our shop search is at the top now. Again, you can put a title inside there. You can not render this with Oxygen, those kinds of things. And we've got things like product lists, product rating lists, and so on. So it's okay. I'm sure you could get a semi-decent store up and running without too much effort. It's not the most streamlined, in my opinion. It's a starting point, so hopefully this is something that it will expand upon as this kind of grows.
Now, if you want to see more on my thoughts of Oxygen, watch this video next. As always, all of the applicable links are in the description below, and if you got value from this video, well, why not give that thumbs up button a click? But if you didn't get value, well, feel free to hit the thumbs down button twice, as that seems to work pretty well too. My name is Paul C, this is WPTuts, and until next time, take care.